Hi, my name is Jim Lewis and I am the Chief of the Watauga Police Department. With the bond election upcoming, we're going to take a tour of the police facility and talk about some of the challenges this location currently presents. The building begins in our police records area. This is our lobby that we have that is intended to welcome people to our location. As you can see, it is small, there is not a lot of room for waiting, and it doesn't create a space that is welcoming to our community. We have very limited meeting space to sit down with individuals, and some of that is because we're having to repurpose space that was intended for other items. In this particular room, we're actually set up for fingerprinting, which we don't do anymore. Now all of our fingerprinting is done at other locations and it's done electronically. Here we have a large room that is dedicated to that space but really isn't feasible for anything else. This room is designed to be our complaint interview room. What we recognize in today's policing is that we really need a space that is more welcoming and inviting and offers a level of privacy from the main lobby that this room doesn't present, with glass walls, a glass door, and a very institutional feel inside. Another challenge with our lobby space, and as you'll see throughout the building, is the amount of wasted space that we have. Space that was intended for other things that we just don't use, and one of those includes our old jail facility. This entire area and the ramp that you can see leading down to it goes down to what once was a visitor's area for those folks who wanted to meet with individuals who had been incarcerated, whether that was loved ones or attorneys. Because we no longer have any kind of jail space here, this space is completely unusable. Right off the lobby area is our training space. Now this room is intended for us to conduct training both internally and externally, but as you'll see, it's very limited on both seating and space available. Comfortably, we can seat about 20 to 25 people in here. Unfortunately, because of the limited space, it does get very warm in here with the HVAC system that we have. Another challenge with our training room is that there's no access controls leading directly into the police sensitive secure area of the building. That means if we want to have any kind of community training, we can't do it in here unless we have someone basically standing guard at the door. This leads directly into our police facility. Just off of our main hall is our break room. One of the biggest challenges we have with our break room is the limited space. We have a single fridge for a staff of 56 people. There's just not room for another fridge in this area. We also have very limited seating, so when folks do want to take a lunch break, it fills up pretty quick. There can be no place to sit down. That leads to folks either eating in their office or eating in some other space, and it just takes away from some of that camaraderie and community that we want to build in our organization. Just off of our main hall and away from the break room is our investigative area. This is where our criminal investigations division works. We have about 8 offices here, and that is for both the commanders and for the investigators and for their supervisor and for our crisis response coordinator. And a big challenge with that is that we are out of office space. We actually need to add another detective to our investigations group, and we just don't have a place to house them. So we're looking at how we can be creative with the existing space we have. That space also includes our one conference room. This conference room is where we hold our command staff meetings. It's where we make decisions and do strategic planning for the organization. It also gets very warm in here. In fact, you can see we have this little blue fan set up. And one of the challenges that we have with this building is recognizing that we have a great need for additional conference space so that we can be more inclusive with the folks that are helping us determine what the path forward is going to be for our group. Next, we're going to go into our patrol briefing room. This is where all of our officers get their assignments for the day. They also are briefed on any incident that occurred that shift prior to them that may be impactful on their safety or what we have going on in the community. It's also our report writing area. One of the big challenges there is that while briefings are going on, you also have officers working on the reports. That can be incredibly difficult because you're trying to be very focused on getting accurate details and making sure all the facts are put in just as you discovered them while a conversation is going on. What also might be going on is evidence processing. So as officers are entering reports and potentially being briefed, you could also have officers processing evidence and making sure that everything is documented, tagged, and ready to be placed into the property room. One of the challenges you might have heard me discuss previously is the electrical shortcomings of this building. It was never designed to support an organization that constantly relies on rechargeable batteries. They're recharging body-worn cameras, they're recharging their flashlights, they're recharging all kinds of equipment, including radars and everything else. So we have very limited space for charging those things and truly recognize that we're in need of a more robust electrical system. The next area we're going to look at is the property room. We have significant challenges here in our property and evidence collection area, with the biggest being the size. We have an incredible amount of property that we're required to keep until the final disposition of any case, and these shelves are almost completely stuffed. This one that I'm looking down right now is racked shelf to shelf and wall to wall with boxes. It's full. There's very limited room for processing evidence in here, so our evidence technician has to really work hard to find space in order to log everything in, make sure it's all documented properly. Additionally, there's no exhaust fan. With the various drugs and chemicals that can be brought into this space, it can be a challenging area to work simply because the air gets very stale. If we wanted to expand, we would actually have to look at blocking off a whole nother area of the building and then building it out to the specifications required to safely keep evidence. We know that that would be expensive and very challenging for the space that we have. The next area we're going to look at is our armory. This is the space where we keep all of our firearms training tools, ammunition, shotguns, anything that would fit in that category. It is also where all of the work is done on those weapons. Now, a huge challenge that we have in here is not only the space. As you can see, we are maxed out. We are stacked wall to wall, again, with no room for expansion. But the amount of moisture that comes into this area is incredible. The single crawl space for this building comes up through the armory and is actually currently under a significant amount of equipment, so I'm not going to show you that. But because of the amount of moisture that comes in here, we have a significant challenge with mildew and mold. We keep a dehumidifier in this space. Now this dehumidifier has a 2.5 gallon tank on it. And in fact, this is the dehumidifier right here, this large box, and this is the tank. This tank was last emptied on Monday. It's a 2.5 gallon tank, and it is completely full right now. So we know that the amount of moisture that comes into the space is not only extremely dangerous for the equipment that we have, but also creates significant maintenance challenges as we attempt to take care of this facility. Now we're going to take a look at the locker room space that we have in this building. We have a challenge in that we have outgrown our locker space. With a staff of 55, this locker room only holds 40 lockers. We have 4 showers, of which one is no longer functional, and that makes it fairly difficult when folks are coming on shift or going off shift. Additionally, the lockers that we have in this space don't have electrical power inside. That means for officers to charge their flashlights, personal equipment, anything else, they have to find some other electrical outlet in the building or take them home with them. And that's a real challenge. You'll see from the amount of gear that's stacked up through that area that there simply isn't enough room in these lockers for the space that officers need with all of today's modern policing equipment. On the far side of our facility is what used to be our jail detention center. When this building was redesigned in 2008, it was designed with both a dispatch communications area as well as a jail and holding facility. We no longer have either one of those. That means all of this space, both in what used to be a dispatch area and what used to be a jail, is areas that we've just had to think about how can we repurpose this and use it in a way that still winds up being good stewards of the resources that we have, but yet recognizing that it's not the best use of space simply because of the inefficient layout. Stepping into this area, you see large, heavy doors, thick glass. We have converted this space into a workout facility for officers. We've done the best that we can with this space, and we want to make sure that we have the resources an officer needs to keep themselves healthy. So we have put together equipment that assists us in doing that. And one of the things we've done in this space is converted each one of the individual holding cells into a smaller workout area. It doesn't exactly make for the greatest airflow as you're working out, but does create some space for us to have the different machines and equipment necessary to accomplish that task. This is our sally port. Now, a sally port is incredibly important when you have a detention facility because you need a space in which officers can pull in on one side, close the gate behind them, the gate stays closed on the other side, and when you have an individual who's been arrested, you can get them out in this space, check their property again to make sure that they're not carrying any weapons, and then they're taken into the holding area. Because we no longer utilize the features of the holding area as we share that resource with North Richland Hills, this has been converted into city storage for the most part. We do try to keep some equipment in here that is best to be kept out of the elements, but again, this is all a part of our footprint that doesn't allow us to make the best use of the space that we have. Along with the space where our holding facility used to be, we have 2 interview rooms, one adult interview room and one juvenile interview room. Both of these rooms were intended for interviews with individuals accused of having committed a crime, where our detectives could meet with that individual and try to determine the facts of the case. There are certain video and audio recording requirements that have now been mandated by state legislature, and we know that these facilities will either have to be brought up to that standard or that will be something that will be addressed with the new facility. When this building was built in 1979, it was 2 separate buildings. When it was redesigned in 2008, those 2 buildings were joined together. Initially, it was police and municipal building on one side and fire on the other side. Now we're trying to utilize that space as best as we can, and a hallway was built to join those 2 buildings. So we're leaving the police side. This was actually outside of any structure, and we have converted this so that our code enforcement offices now take place in this area. We have 3 code enforcement officers and their hardworking code enforcement supervisor diligently working away. This space is, as you can see, it's very dim, it's very gray, there's very little light, and it's not the greatest place for conducting the level of investigations that they do conduct here. Moving down the hallway, we have the traffic unit who works out of a converted storage closet. As you might have heard me mention in the town hall meetings, I wish that I could tell you that this was some type of trick photography where I was making it look dimmer than it is, but this is actually the space that they work in. Walking from the traffic unit area into what used to be the fire department's fire bay. We're currently utilizing this space for the build out of some future police vehicles. They would not normally be parked here, they would be parked in our secure lot. We do use a small amount of this space for our police motorcycle parking, and we also keep our police bicycles in here. However, that leaves an enormous amount of square footage that was never designed to support police operations or police functionality. As long as we're in the fire bay, one of the other things that I do want to talk about is the limited parking that we have at this facility. We have just enough space to park our marked vehicles in the secure police lot. That's great, but it doesn't allow any room for our fleet to expand, especially if we were to add any additional officers. We are maxed out in that space. The other challenge that we recognize today with modern policing is the importance of staff personal vehicles to also have a secure space to park in. We are aware of incidents around the country that have occurred where personal vehicles have been damaged or officers have been attacked as they've left the facility walking towards their personal vehicles. And we know that that's just something that we need to take every step that we can to protect our officers from. Just off of the fire bay is another break room. Now this break room was designed for the firefighters that worked here at the time. And as you can see, because of its distance away from where we actually conduct our operations, it's wasted square footage. That's been a big challenge for us. We have a small cooking and eating area over here that sees almost no use because, again, officers are rarely in this space. Additionally, we have a significant amount of square footage behind this door that has been converted to police storage that was once upon a time the fire officer's bunk room. We don't have bunk rooms for police officers, and so now, doing the best we can with the space that we have, we use it for storage, but again, it's area that we're just not able to use efficiently. Our records area is also full. This is where we keep all of the documentation that is required by law for open records requests, for court documentation purposes, for officer records, anything that we might need to maintain. Again, we have extremely limited space for any kind of expansion, and as you can see from the video, we are full up. Thank you for joining me on this tour and learning more about Proposition A. The Watauga Police Department and Animal Services are committed to providing excellent service both now and in the future.